Okay, today is 22nd of July 2009, and we are on the 11th chapter of the Samyutta Nikaya, Sakka Samyutta, or the suttas that have to do with Sakka Devaraja. Now we come to 11.5. At Savatthi, the Buddha said, "Monks, once in the past, the Devas and the Asuras were arrayed for battle. Then Vipacitti, Lord of the Asuras, said to Sakka Devaraja, 'Lord of the Devas, let there be victory by well-spoken counsel.' And Sakka replied, 'Vipacitti, let there be victory by well-spoken counsel.' Then monks, the Devas and Asuras appointed a panel of judges, saying, 'These will ascertain what has been well spoken and badly spoken by us.' Then Vipacitti, Lord of the Asuras, said to Sakka Devaraja, 'Speak a verse, Lord of the Devas.' When this was said, Sakka said to Vipacitti, 'You, Vipacitti, being the senior Deva here, speak a verse.' When this was said, Vipacitti, Lord of the Asuras, recited this verse. I'll stop here for a moment. So here, the Asuras and the Devas were arrayed, ready to fight. And then this leader of the Asuras, he suddenly had an idea. He said, why don't we have a fight of words? We see who can speak better. So Sakka Devaraja agreed. So now Sakka Devaraja says, 'You are the elder Deva, so you speak first.' And this was said, Vipacitti, Lord of the Asuras, recited this verse. 'Fools would vent their anger even more if no one would keep them in check. Hence, with drastic punishment, the wise man should restrain the fool.' When monks, Vipacitti, Lord of the Asuras, spoke this verse, the Asuras applauded, but the Devas were silent. Then Vipacitti said to Sakka, 'Speak a verse, Lord of the Devas.' When this was said, Sakka Devaraja recited this verse. 'I myself think this alone is the way to check the fool. When one knows one's foe is angry, one mindfully maintains one's peace.' When monks, Sakka Devaraja, spoke this verse, the Devas applauded, but the Asuras were silent. Then Sakka said to Vipacitti, 'Speak a verse, Vipacitti.' When this was said, Vipacitti, Lord of the Asuras, recited this verse. 'I see this fault, O Vasava, in practicing patient endurance. When the fool thinks of you thus, he endures me out of fear. The dolt will chase you even more, as a bull does one who flees.'" I'll stop here for a moment. This Vasava is another name of Sakka Devaraja. When monks, Vipacitti, Lord of the Asuras, spoke this verse, the Asuras applauded, but the Devas were silent. Then Vipacitti said to Sakka, "Speak a verse, Lord of the Devas." When this was said, Sakka Devaraja recited these verses. "Let it be whether or not he thinks, he endures me out of fear. Of goals that culminate in one's own good, none is found better than patience. When a person endowed with strength patiently endures a weakling, they call that the supreme patience. The weakling must be patient always. They call that strength no strength at all, the strength that is the strength of folly. But no one can reproach a person who is strong because guarded by Dhamma. One who repays an angry man with anger thereby makes things worse for himself. Not repaying an angry man with anger, one wins a battle hard to win. He practices for the welfare of both, his own and the others. When knowing that his foe is angry, he mindfully maintains his peace. When he achieves the cure of both, his own and the others, the people who consider him a fool are unskilled in the Dhamma. When monks, these verses were spoken by Sakka Devaraja, the Devas applauded, but the Asuras were silent. Then the panel of judges appointed by the Devas and Asuras said this: the verses spoken by Vipachiti, Lord of the Asuras, are in the sphere of punishment and violence. Hence they entail conflict, contention and strife. But the verses spoken by Sakka Devaraja are in the sphere of non-punishment and non-violence. Hence they entail freedom from conflict, freedom from contention and freedom from strife. Sakka, Lord of the Devas, has won the victory by well-spoken counsel. In this way, monks, Sakka Devaraja won the victory by well-spoken counsel. Let's stop here. That's the end of the sutta. So you see the character of these two Devarajas. The Vipachiti is a more fierce, more violent type. It's quick to use violence, but the Sakka Devaraja is very patient and does not allow himself to get angry or to vent his anger. That's the nature of the Asuras. They like to fight. 11.6 at Savatthi. Monks, once in the past, the Devas and the Asuras were arrayed for battle. In that battle, the Asuras won, and the Devas were defeated. In defeat, the Devas withdrew towards the north, while the Asuras pursued them. Then Sakka, Lord of the Devas, addressed his charioteer Matali in verse: avoid, O Matali, with your chariot pole, the bird nests in the silk cottonwoods. Let's surrender our lives to the Asuras rather than make these birds nestless. Yes, your lordship, Matali the charioteer replied, and he turned back the chariot with its team of 1,000 thoroughbreds. Stop here for a moment. So here Sakka Devaraja was in his chariot going full speed, being chased by the Asuras. But he saw ahead of him the bird nest on the trees. So he was afraid if they keep flying through the air like this, they may injure the bird nest and maybe kill the young birds. So he told his driver Matali, the Deva Matali, to turn the 1,000 white horses around to avoid the bird nest. Then monks, it occurred to the Asuras, now Sakka's chariot with its team of 1,000 thoroughbreds has turned back. The Devas will engage in battle with the Asuras for a second time. Stricken by fear, they entered the city of the Asuras. In this way, monks, Sakka Devaraja won a victory by means of righteousness itself. It's the end of the sutta. So here, when Sakka Devaraja's chariot turned back, made a U-turn, then the Asuras assume that there must be a lot of Devas behind. That's why he is coming back to fight again. So they got frightened and they ran off back to their city. So here Sakka Devaraja won because of righteousness. 11.9 at Savatthi. Monks, once in the past, a number of seers who were virtuous and of good character had settled down in leaf huts in a tract of forest. One moment, these seers are ascetics. I think the Sanskrit word is rishis, rishi. In Thailand they call rishi. Then Sakka Devaraja and Vipachiti, lord of the Asuras, approached those seers. Vipachiti, lord of the Asuras, put on his boots, bound his sword on tightly, and with the parasol borne aloft, entered the hermitage through the main gate. Then, having turned his left side towards them, he walked past those seers who were virtuous and of good character. But Sakka Devaraja took off his boots, handed over his sword to others, lowered his parasol, his umbrella, and entered the hermitage through an ordinary gate or a small gate. Then he stood on the lee side, raising his joined hands in reverential salutation, paying homage to those seers who were virtuous and of good character. Let's stop here for a moment. So you see, this Sakka Devaraja and this Vipachiti, sometimes they fight with each other, but sometimes they are friends. Because Sakka Devaraja has many wives, and one of his favorite wives is, I think, Sujampati, and that is the daughter of Vipachiti, the lord of the Asuras. So actually Vipachiti is the father-in-law of Sakka Devaraja. So in this sutta, they went together to see these ascetics in the forest. And Vipachiti, wearing his boots and with his sword and his umbrella high up, he walked through the main gate, quite proud. Then with his left side towards them. In his left side towards them shows not paying respect, because in the Indian tradition and probably in the Deva tradition, if you respect somebody, your right side must always face that person. But here he turned his left side towards them and walked past them. On the other hand, Sakka Devaraja took off his boots out of respect, and even his sword he handed over to a lesser Deva, and then lowered his umbrella and entered the hermitage through a small gate. Then he stood on the lee side, on the lower side of the wind, lower side of the wind, so that the wind goes first to the ascetics and then to him, out of respect. Then monks, those seers addressed Sakka in verse. The odor of the seers, long bound by their vows, emitted from their bodies, goes with the wind. Turn away from here, thousand-eyed God, for the seer's odor is foul, Devaraja. And Sakka Devaraja said, let the odor of the seers, long bound by their vows, emitted from their bodies, go with the wind. We yearn for this odor, Venerable Sirs. As for a garland of flowers on the head, the Devas do not perceive it as repulsive. That's the end of the sutta. So here, the seers understood that this Sakka Devaraja was standing on the lee side. In other words, when the wind blows, the smell of the ascetics, the human smell will go to this Devaraja. So they know that the human smell is very repulsive, very smelly to the Devas. And so they asked him not to stand there. But he told them that he respects them so much that he yearns for the smell, just like a garland of flowers on the head. So you see the character of Sakka Devaraja is very different from the Asura king. 11.11 at Savatthi. Monks, in the past, when Sakka Devaraja was a human being, he adopted and undertook 7 vows, by the undertaking of which he achieved